As an officer in Minnesota, one of the tougher things in my job is to go and talk to family members and let them know that a loved one was killed in a motor vehicle crash. It's also tough for officers like myself to go to these crashes and investigate them and to see that the fatality or the major injury could have been prevented by someone paying more attention to the roadway or making better decisions before they got in their vehicle. One of the reasons the Sheriff's Office is out doing the pedal car demonstrations, and one of the reasons why we're here today, is to inform people that distracted and inattentive driving is a large issue. This issue affects people on a personal level. It doesn't matter if you're the person involved in the crash. You could be a person that just happens to be passing by this crash and come upon it and see stuff that you don't want to see. Or you could be a family member who is affected by losing a loved one in a crash. And it's something that we're trying to prevent at the Sheriff's Office. We're trying to make the roads a safer place and keep motor vehicle fatalities and injuries down.
When you say distracted driving, I think of the challenges that I currently have when I drive. I'm listening to music,
texting, accessing their phone, talking on their phone, which is dangerous enough.
Other people in your car that are interrupting you.
People are in a really big hurry in the morning. I've seen people putting on their makeup.
You're maybe watching the road, but are you really anticipating the things that are going on around you?
People that eat in the car, maybe it's somebody talking to you in the back car, maybe you have your pet in the car with you. Anything that would take your eyes off of the road, I think, is distracted driving.
We're all aware of the risks that we take while driving, and that there are so many distractions that we want to do everything possible to avoid an accident. And there are times when I have taken phone calls or received a text message, and I think I've been reminded each time that I've taken that risk of how serious it is. You focus on the conversation and it takes away your attention from driving and what's happening around you. So I know in my own situation, I need to avoid those temptations. Not only do you place yourself at risk, but again, you're placing others at risk, and these would be mistakes that you would have to live with for the rest of your life.
In Minnesota, on the average day, there are 215 motor vehicle accidents. For the 215 motor vehicle accidents, there's approximately 88 injuries per day. Every day in the state of Minnesota, they estimate the cost of motor vehicle crashes to be $4.4 million per day. There are a few factors that kind of come into play for the motor vehicle crashes in Minnesota. One of the larger ones tends to be inattention or distraction. For the single vehicle crashes in Minnesota, the total amount of crashes in Minnesota, approximately 20% of them, the officer investigating listed inattention or distraction as a factor in the crash. DWIs are also a large percentage of the crashes in Minnesota. For the state, there's approximately 111 deaths per year due to alcohol-related crashes. It has been on a downward trend, but the arrest levels of DWIs have been staying fairly constant. Approximately 1 in 7 drivers in Minnesota right now has a prior DWI conviction on their driver's license. Areas in rural Minnesota, there is a very high percentage of crash reports that have listed excessive speed as a factor in the crash.
And I think a lot of times as a driver, you have a number of close calls, whether it be another vehicle, whether it be a speeding ticket.
And if you think about those cones being people or trees or objects I could have hit, that's pretty scary.
We have this thing called Win the Day, and it was started by our football team. Basically, it means to stay chemical free. Like, we make the choice to stay chemical free and just win the day by being a good person. Distracted driving to me means like texting, you know, eating, being distracted by your friends, and like just not paying attention to what's going on around you. I feel like I, at one point, a few times, have been driving distracted. I mean, it's kind of hard to just, you know, stare at the road the whole entire time, you know. Like, I'll carry like some type of drink with me before school, you know, and like I usually just wait I don't drink it while I'm driving. I just wait till I get to school, but I don't know. It depends how like hungry or thirsty I am. I would consider the radio being really loud a distraction. I mean, it just like takes away from all your surroundings, and like it's hard to like pay attention to everything. You're just mostly focused on the music that's playing. Doing two things at once while driving, I think it's kind of hard because, you know, you should probably just stay looking at the road the whole time. It's just keeps everyone safe around you and yourself safe. The most challenging part was just it was like really blurry, and it was just really hard to like just know where you're going most of the time, and just having to make quick reactions like that with those goggles on isn't really easy.
I have been driving for 3 years now. When I first started, I thought, well, nothing's gonna happen. It will be fine if one text is sent. But then once I started driving and I realized how much you have to look out for and how much responsibility you have while driving, that I'm completely against it now. I see a lot of people doing things while driving, like putting on makeup at stoplights or stop signs, or texting while driving, or even eating or handing the food back to their kids in the back seat. Or even I saw a girl changing clothes while driving. I feel strongly about not being distracted while driving because I do not want to kill somebody or myself because of a text I couldn't answer, or eating when I could eat 5 minutes when I get home. My parents both, they do not like distracted driving. They are very against it, and they taught my brother Austin and I never to do it. My grandparents, they made me sign a contract, if you'd say, so that I would not text and drive. They're very against it, and they don't want me to get hurt because of a text. Distracted driving can hurt or kill somebody.
As an officer, once we make a traffic stop and we can smell that there's alcohol in the vehicle, we can see some other factors from the driver. Maybe they have watery bloodshot eyes, maybe they're slurring speech. Once we get evidence that they have been drinking alcohol, we do ask them to come out and do field sobriety tests. And, usually we'll go through a barrage of 3 tests, the first one being the walk and turn, second we'll do the 1-foot stand, and then we'll do a horizontal gaze nystagmus test where we'll check their eyes to see if their eyes are showing any signs of impairment. For field sobriety test, first directions we give for the walk and turn test will be ask the person to stand with their right foot in front of their left heel to toe and keep their arms down by their side. We'll have them wait in that position, and we'll explain the directions to the test and kind of observe them while they're waiting in that position to see if we see any other indicators that they've been drinking too much. After we explain the directions to the test, we'll have them walk their 9 steps, pivot, and then walk back towards the beginning. During that, we're looking for other indicators that show that they might be impaired. If they're lifting their arms, if they need to use their arms for balance, if they're stumbling off of the line, if they're not able to keep track of their steps, indicators like that are kind of what we're taking note of.
My thoughts after completing the course is that distracted driving is very, very, very dangerous, and no matter how in control of the vehicle you think you are, you really have no control once you're distracted. Distracted driving is not worth risking your life or risking someone else's life.
Don't drink and drive, and don't text and drive. Stay above the influence and make good choices and win the day.
Even though we feel like or think we have control and are experienced and know what we're doing, we need to make sure we're giving our full attention to driving and making sure that our priority is the safety of ourselves, others in the car, and other people that may be around us, either walking, biking, or driving next to us.
There's nothing you can do with practice. You don't get better at it. It's just a matter of time. You're playing Russian roulette if you're going to do those things.
I tried to concentrate harder, but it's still, you still hit the cones because you were impaired or distracted.
Distracted driving is a choice, and it's 100% preventable. As a teacher, I've gone to students' funerals because of drunk driving. I don't want to be looking at that empty seat.
Students have the ability to influence their peers in a positive way and in a negative way. The actions that you take today can have an impact on the rest of your life.
We're very dependent on the work of every single employee, and it would be a terrible tragedy to have an accident that could have been prevented.
Everything can wait, so there's nothing worth a life or a damaged car that you have to do right that minute.